Welcome back, guys. Heavy Arrow, and today I'm going to show you how to make your one bow the most versatile bow you can have. Stick around.
Well, I've never been one to go by the rules. Well, I didn't care what was in. Well, I didn't care what was cool. Well, I've always been a little reckless and wild and free. The older I get, the younger I wanna be. Yeah, 'cause I'm still some kind of crazy, out on the edge.
Alright, so if you're like me, you like to shoot, I got a small table here, the heavy arrows. This is my Grizzly Stick Momentum 250, 650 grains, 25% FOC, and you really like shooting these, but you also like to go shoot 3D competitions, and these struggle in the unknown. And if you're shooting out far in different places, what you'll find is that if you are slightly off, I do think these are the most accurate arrows, but they're just, if you don't know the distance or your rangefinder's slightly off, it could throw you off a tad bit if you were off by yardage, because 5 yards makes a big difference. 5 yards with this arrow, you could completely miss your target depending how big your target is. If you're like me, I'm cheap, so I only buy small targets. I can miss the whole target. So you also like to have an arrow like this, which is your standard run-of-the-mill arrow. This is a Victory 350 spine, probably comes, I think I've weighed them at 430. This is a light hunting arrow. You know, so you like to have some of them on hand because for 3D competitions, and actually for turkey, this is actually, I think, a better arrow. It's tiny, it shoots fast. You're not gonna, they're cheaper. You know, you don't want to shoot your big Grizzly Stick and then have to go chase it down. That's never a good, you know, these things are much more expensive, so I save these for like deer, bigger game. So then maybe you want a medium like this. This is a Victory RIP 204. I actually don't care for these outserts here. In fact, actually, don't buy these with the outserts. These outserts are terrible. I don't like them. Highly recommend you do not use those outserts that come with it. But, you know, this is actually weighing in at 500 grains, just because it's the 204 diameter. I think the standard Victory V-Force arrow, like this one, is 530. So that's a nice medium range. But you have a variety of arrows, and you want to switch it up for the game that you're hunting. But your sight, then it doesn't matter. You either have adjustable pins, and you have to adjust your pins, and that's terrible. You spend all this time adjusting your pins to get it to shoot perfectly, and then you switch seasons. It's terrible. So what I decided to do is have multiple sights. So what this has here is a dovetail, and I'm not going to bore you. You can see that dovetail right there. And all these, and there's plenty of people who make these. I get a dovetail sight, and this is why. So I have two sights right here, and I can tell you just by looking at them, this is my 430 grain arrow sight, and this is my 650 grain sight. And as long as I remember what notch, these are all set at 3, that's where I shoot personally, I can swap out the sight and I'm good to go. So I can go from shooting these 650 grain Grizzly Sticks that are made to kill everything to down here to shooting the lightweight stuff, the really tiny modern compound arrow. If I had a third one, and I might still do this, I'd have my nice medium. So like I'm out west, or I'm hunting something bigger. I'm hunting in a place where I'm gonna make long shots. So like this might not be the best, 650 grains. Let's say oryx, there's a good one. I'm hunting oryx, I might have to take a long shot. Well, this might be better, 550 grains with a high FOC instead of the extreme FOC. You know, Bomar made a 80-yard shot, which I could still do with this. But I mean, I'm throwing hypotheticals out here, and you're like, man, you know, you could be shooting wonky angles, and you got to play it differently, and this will give you a little bit more forgiveness. Or you could be hunting black buck and lower. So black buck are like 75 pounds, if that. I can't remember how much the black buck actually weighs. They're not very big. And rams, well, rams are great trophies, but yeah, we don't need to be flinging the expensive grizzly stick at them. I can fling this V-Force arrow, which is a good arrow, but it's a lot cheaper. As long as I got my everything dialed in on this arrow, 100 grain point, it'll do the trick, because rams are only going to weigh in, again, about 50 pounds. Maybe heavier. They're not, I guess you could get a big ram, but they're not extraordinarily what you would call tough animals. Or if you want something to hunt rams with, you could go with this 550. And simply by swapping the dovetail, you can hunt anything. So I could actually go on my exotic hunts, which we like to do here, and I could take my pig load for the big old swines, and like I said, if I'm hunting something else, black buck rams, there's my little light load. Turkeys, could be, and you go to Africa or any other trip, I say Africa, let's say New Zealand, because they've got the wild rams and goats and stuff. And again, you're talking red stag. You could carry this in your backpack and carry some of these in your quiver. You have the most versatile bow. You have the versatility of the old recurve bows and the performance of your modern bow. Now, this one right here is an Apex Gear, their 4-pin version, and I'm not even going to mention it because it's irrelevant. If you want me to do I might do a review on the site later on, but these are just dovetailed. If you go to Amazon, you can find a lot of 4 or 5-pin cheap dovetail sights, even cheaper than these. This is not an expensive one. This is like $150, so it's in that medium price range. I know some of you guys are like grabbing your heart, like, you bought that twice? Well, the only other site on the market that advertises this feature is the HHA Tetra Max, and it's just one housing with 2 wheels, and it advertises about switching back and forth, and they want almost $500 for that site. I'm not saying these sites are as good, but for what I'm doing, these sites work great. But like I said, there's plenty of dovetail sites out there that are cheap Chinese knockoffs that will do the trick. You might not get the long range accuracy out of them, but if you're just wanting to hunt, this is a good way to turn your bow into your 3D bow, so you can actually practice with your shooting 3D targets with your actual bow. You could, and if let's say you don't like to do a lot of exotic hunting, you could have, you could have your standard deer hunting arrow, and then you could have one of your other sights set up for those big old fat 3D arrows, or outdoor sight, indoor sight, if you're into that thing, and then a hunting sight. And like I said, some of these sites are $50, and you could have 3-4 setups. Now, some caveats with this, and don't get carried away with this, is that you must make sure your rest is still going to be in timed. So I've not had a problem with the heavier arrows. I've actually noticed my rest likes to fall slower because my entire bow moves slower, which is good. Actually, it's less wear and tear on it. But so that rest, you gotta make sure your rest stays in timed. And then the other thing I'm going to say is you make sure you use the same dovetail company. So if you go with that cheap Amazon site for $50, $40, that's fine. But if you're going to have 2 or 3 different arrows setups for one bow, I recommend you buy as many as you think you're going to, or save that in your Amazon order some way, add it to a wish list. So that way in the future you get the same dovetail, because not every company's dovetails fit exactly the same. So I would highly recommend you sticking with the same company. You wouldn't take your 223 moose hunting at the same time you wouldn't take your 45-70 or 300 Win Mag and try to shoot a turkey. And that's what prompted me to do this. So I hope this information helps you guys out. I hope this saves you some money. I know the sites are really expensive and can be. And if you're just shooting, if you don't really shoot 3D in competitions, I don't know why you would do this. But if you're like me and you like to go back and forth from 3D to hunting and you like to have multiple arrows, this might help you out. If you like this video, hit that like button, guys. It really helps us out. If you want to see more content, hit that subscribe button. Our subscribes are going, our subscriptions, can't talk, are going up, and guys, we appreciate it. If you want to head on over to Facebook and follow us there, you'll see a lot more pictures and updates about not just me, but our whole crew doing different things. And remember to always keep it heavy.